Okay, hi everyone. We're going to solve quadratics by completing the square. So this method is very specific to allow us to get more than one thing. We're not just going to solve it, but we're going to walk and pick up a couple of things along the way. Okay, it's like, hey, you're going to the market. Can you pick up this and this? Since you're going to be there, we're going to get that from this method. So here we go. Let's get started. So if I give you the problem, x squared, let's do plus 6x plus 8, and now we're going to say equals 0. Now the reason why we're equaling 0 because now it's an equation, and we can solve for it now. So we're going to solve for x. Okay. Now we've solved for x before. In this problem, we could factor, and factoring makes this problem pretty easy. X squared plus 6x plus 8 is equal to 0. Two numbers that multiply to become 8 that add up to become 6. Hopefully you'll say two numbers multiplied by 8 is 1, 8, and 2 and 4. Do any of these guys add up to 6? Hopefully you'll see and say, oh, Mr. Ko, hey, 2 and 4. And hopefully you're building that into your intuition now. Like when you factor and you learn the way I taught factoring, you're coming up with these numbers automatically. And you say, oh, 1 times 8, 2 times 4, oh, 2 times 4 is 6. Got it. We can factor this and we can say x times x is x squared. And 2 times 4 is 6, and if it's plus plus, that's how we end up with a plus 6. So we've solved for factoring. We solved by factoring. X plus 2 is equal to 0. X plus 4 is equal to 0. Now, again, you could just do this in your brain, and isn't x equals to -2 one answer, and x equal to, hey, that would be -4. These would make this go to 0. Perfect. You guys have factored, you guys have solved this literally in one line, and factoring is great. But today we're going to talk about a different method by completing the square. So if I look at a graph, the answers -2 and -4, -1, 2, 3, 4, -2, and -4 are the zeros of my parabola. Sure, and the parabola will do something like that. Okay, we can make it up. Squeeze a parabola in there. So let's go ahead and complete the square, and we'll find something else along the way. So let's go ahead and look at this level 1 problem for x squared minus plus 6x plus 8, and we are going to complete the square. So since level 1, we're going to bubble up x plus what? What number does 6 become when we're completing the square? Hopefully you've done this enough that you're going to say divide by 2, and this will become 3. We always divide the middle by 2. We always half it. We always half it. Okay. Next part is, what do we do with this 3? We find our perfect square. We square it. So 3 times 3 is 9. So plus 9 minus 9. Hopefully you guys remember that. I need to see all this notation when you guys are doing your work. You guys are completing the square. And then we're going to -1 to both sides. Okay. Now, we are in a great position here because now we can say what the vertex is. The vertex is at -3, -1. If you remember, our vertex is at that number. Give me the negative. And the vertex is the center of my parabola. Let's look at the bottom of my graph here. And -3, here's -3. And -1, check it out, my vertex. So one thing when we complete the square is we're given the vertex. Great. Now, here is the next step. Now, I'm going to go through it slowly, but then I'm going to show you guys we can do this quickly, okay? We're going to do it slowly, but then we can do this quickly. So let's do this slowly. What we're going to do, we're going to now solve for x here. Look on the left. We're going to go ahead and solve for x. Oops, darn it. Solve for x. Now, if I'm going to solve for x, let's look at what numbers I need to get rid of. I need to get rid of the -1. I need to get rid of the squared. And then I need to get rid of the 3 in this order. Okay, I want you guys to imagine x as a person. Here's x. Hi, I'm x here. Hi, I'm x, right? Okay, here's x. And it has to get rid of everyone from his room. Well, here's my door, hi door. I need to kick everyone out of the room. I'm going to get rid of the -1 first. Then I'm going to get rid of the squared. And then I'm going to get rid of that 3. But how do we do that in math? We do our inverse operation. We're going to do our opposite operations. So let's go ahead and rewrite this again. X plus 3 squared minus 1. So how do I get rid of this -1 here? Well, we add 1 to both sides. X plus 3 squared equals to 1. All right, That's it. Good. We have to get rid of something else. Do we get rid of the 3 or the 2? What's next on my list? We get rid of the 2, the squared. Now, the way we get rid of a squared is we take the square root. I'm going to write a square root on both sides. X plus 3 squared equals to plus and minus the square root of 1. Now, when you take a square root, you have to remember to write out plus and minus, something that we talked about earlier in the year. So if you initiate the date, you got to pay for it. You got to make sure you bring all your money, your plus and minuses. Well, that nicely gets rid of the square root. Perfect. And then we are left with x plus 3 is equal to plus and minus square root of 1. Now, next step, let's get rid of the 3 minus 3 to both sides. Now, this is going to be written in a nice way where negative 3 goes in front of the plus and minus square root of 1. So this seems like a lot of work, and I understand that this seems like a lot of work, and you rather factor, and I wish you could factor, but factoring doesn't give you the vertex, and sometimes that vertex is really useful for us. But this method, completing the square, is super important that we learn it. Now, how do we solve this next step? I see a square root. Now, the plus and minus means we have 2 different answers. Now, I want to make sure you guys, everyone is drawing these arrows here. We have 2 different answers, negative 3 plus square root of 1, and negative 3 minus square root of 1. If you take a look, these are actually 2 different combinations. One is a plus version, and one is a negative version. And we have to do them both, because both of these are answers for us. Now, just to say this, what's the square root of 1? Hopefully you know the square root of 1 is just 1. And again, the square root of 1 is just 1. And so what is negative 3 plus 1? That's going to be negative 2. Negative 3 minus 1 is negative 4. And guess what? That was our answer back here. So yes, it took a lot more steps, but all the steps were familiar to us back from way back in August. We're going to do our opposite operations so that we can isolate the x. So pretty much we're kind of coming again full circle around what we learned back in August. We're still using it right now in algebra. Now, I would like you guys to teach you the one-step method to do this. One-step method to do this. Now, you could feel like you want to write all this. Great, this is all nice work. This is all perfect work. But when we're taking a test, we don't have time to do all this writing. Now, here we go. I'm going to do this problem again. Here's a fast method. We're going to do this all in our heads. Which is good. Don't you want to show work? I do. But what I mean, let me show you the work I require. X plus 3 squared minus 1 is equal to 0. Let's start here. I want you guys to do all this stuff in one step, okay? We're gonna fill up our shopping cart in one step. We're just gonna go around once. We're not gonna go back around. Make sure you have a shopping list. We're gonna do this. So we're gonna get rid of what first? We can get rid of the 1, then we get rid of the squared, and then we get rid of the 3, okay? We're gonna get rid of these things in this order. So what happens? If I move the 1 over, don't we end up with a positive 1 by itself? Right? Negative 1 plus 1 is a 1, positive 1. Then we're going to take the square root, and we're going to minus the 3. Done in one step. Literally one step, please. We did it in one step. We can now solve these separately. Negative 3 plus 1, negative 3 minus 1. That's going to be negative 2 and negative 4. Done. Okay, I'm going to give you one more example of this. Actually, I'm going to give you 2 examples of us solving it this quick way. We've learned how to complete the square before. Now we're going to learn how to solve this in one step. So let's go ahead and look at 2 different examples of this solving the quick way. If I write x plus 4 squared minus 5 is equal to, and x minus 3 squared minus, minus 6 is equal to 0, okay? We're gonna have to do these 2 problems at the same time so we can see the method behind it. Okay, on my left side, what number do I get rid of first? The 4, the 2, or the 5? Okay, remember, we're kicking him off to the other side. So is everyone okay when I'm getting rid of the 5? Then what do I get rid of? The squared, and then the 4. Look on the right side, let's look at the same order. What do I get rid of first? The 3, the 2, or the 6? Get rid of the 6, then get rid of the 2, and then get rid of the 3. Let's see if you guys can come up with each of these answers. X is equal to, on the left, let's get rid of it first. What number do I get rid of? 5. Then to get rid of the 2, I'm going to take a square root, plus or minus, and then get rid of the 4. What type of 4? Opposite of plus 4 is a minus 4. So be careful about that. Make sure you got your signs. We're not just copying stuff over, we're doing the opposite operations. On the right side, let's do it again. What number did I get rid of first? The 6, opposite of plus, minus 6 is plus 6. Opposite of square is square root, plus and minus. And what's opposite of plus, so minus 3? Plus 3. Okay, let's do 2 more problems, just like this. You could go through all the steps. Again, you could write x plus 4 squared minus 5 is equal to 0, plus 5 plus 5. X minus 4 squared is equal to 5. Then we take the square root of both sides. X minus 4 is equal to plus and minus square root of 5. And then we add 4 to both sides. X equals to 4 plus and minus square root of 5. We get our same answer here. Oh, sorry. I miscopied that. The minus is a minus. Right? So we could have done that. Sure, that is 100% okay too. But I want you guys to realize that you could just solve it in this one-step method, because I'm doing really 3 steps in one. These are 3 baby steps. I'm gonna write them all together. Okay, let's do 2 more quickly, okay? 2 more. X minus 1 squared plus 6 is equal to 0, and x squared minus, x plus 4 squared equals to 0. Okay, take a look at these problems, slightly different. Now on my left, what number am I going to get rid of first? The 6, so it's negative 6, opposite of plus 6 is minus 6, when you're going to take the square root, get rid of the square, and opposite of minus 1 is a plus 1. Okay, on the right, I don't have a value here, do I? So just move on. What do we get rid of? The square and then the 4. How to get rid of a square? Take the square root, fine, write square root of 0. And then minus 4 to it. What's the square root of 0? Nothing, it's just negative 4. Answer is negative 4. On my left though, here is a rule that we have. We cannot take a square root of negatives, so we have no real solutions. So whenever you take a square root of a negative, that is not possible. We can't take a square root of negatives because you can't take a square of a negative number. It's like a negative times a negative is a positive, but a negative times a positive is negative. So square roots are always looking for pairs of the exact same number. There is no exact same number to get a negative. So no real solutions. All right, so let's go back and practice this from the start. And let's see if you guys can kind of get some teeth in this. So if I say x squared minus 6x plus 10, slightly different problem, okay, is equal to 0. Let's solve this using quadratic formula. No, sorry, completing the square, because I'm completing the square. So since this is a level 1 problem, let's go ahead and bubble up. What goes inside the bubble? X what? Plus or minus, and then divide by 2. Half of 6 is 3. X minus 3. What's a perfect C value I wish I had? Hopefully you're okay with saying plus 9 and minus 9. And 10 minus 9 is positive 1. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and solve for zeros. Let's go ahead and solve for x to make this go to 0. We're going to get rid of the 1, get rid of the squared, get rid of 3. X is equal to negative 1, the square root, plus and minus of positive 3. Now we could try to split this, but let me ask you, are we allowed to take a square root of negative numbers? No. So our answer here is actually going to be no real solutions. And we're actually done here. Yeah, we are. Okay, let's try another one. X squared plus 8x minus 3 equals to 0. Now this one is not factorable. That's fine. Now let's solve this by completing the square. Now you're going to see me do the work. You have to show the work. If you don't show the work, I cannot give you credit. I just think you're just copying from an online source. But I do all the work in my head. Nope, I'm not accepting that. You've been in math classes for the last how many years? No teacher says, do it in your head. Don't show the work. X plus 4. The perfect square is 4 times 4 is plus 16, minus 16, and negative 19. It was really funny. The last couple homeworks, you guys had to do it, right? And then it was called completing the square and ask you guys to upload the picture. A couple of kids just copied the problem and then they copied the answer. And they said, Mr. Ko, I did all the work. No, you didn't. You just copied the answer. You're not getting any credit for it. Sorry about that. Actually, I'm not even sure why I'm sorry about it. You should be sorry about it. You didn't do any work. Okay, so let's go and get rid of what numbers? The 4, the squared, or the 19 first. Let's get rid of the 19. That becomes a positive 19. Take the square root, plus and minus, and then minus 4. And don't forget to write x is equal to this option. Now, I'm going to talk about how to do this next on the calculator. We're going to have two possibilities here. Negative 4 plus square root of 19 and negative 4 minus square root of 19, okay? So we're going to write this answer. Now, you can see me. I actually wrote out the work. I'm showing you that there's two different possibilities. I need you to write this step. I need you to write this step because we're going to type this in the calculator now. So I'm going to write negative 4 or 4 negative in my case because, oh, hey, socks. 4 negative. I have a negative sign right here. 4 negative plus 19 square root equals. Oops. Is that right? 19 square root is, yep, yeah, that was it. Minus 4. Our answer is 0.358, right? But what happens if we need to round off? The Excel is going to ask you for the nearest hundreds. The hundreds place is right here. So this is actually 0.36. If we are typing this in IXL, that's the number that they want. I want you guys to make sure you guys can practice this on your calculator right now to make sure you're good with it. If you want, yeah, let's just try it. 4 negative minus 19 square root equals, and then we end up with our next number, negative 8.358. I'm going to round up to negative 8.36 because 35.8 is closer to 36 rather than 35. Okay, so you guys will be asked to do this on IXL using your calculator. Now, as you can see, I didn't show that much work, but this is the work I'm expecting at minimum for you guys to solve this problem, at minimum. Okay. Now, what if my problem has other stuff going on? Remember, we had different ways of completing the square depending on the level, right? And the levels all really depended on whether fractions or what happened in between. So if I write x squared, let's do a fraction, plus 5x minus 2, okay, equals 0. Let's do a problem like this. Okay, so I'm asking you guys to complete the square. Let's complete the square. What is my x minus, what's that number inside my square now? 5 divided by 2. Remember, I asked you guys to write just 5 over 2. That's what you're going to write. You write 5 over 2, it's just a half. That's what it is. What's the perfect C value I wish I had? You square 5 over 2 to make it 25 over 4. If I add 25 over 4, I need to minus 25 over 4. Now, completing the square, we had this trick where the 25 over 4 and the 2, they got to combine, but they can't because of the denominator. So we're going to change that negative 2 to have a common denominator. You get a 4 on top and the bottom. That gives us negative 8 over 4. Isn't negative 8 over 4 the same as 2? I just went and made change. And then we can combine these two numbers. Oops. But then we can combine these numbers. Let me highlight those numbers for you. We can combine these numbers. Oh, we can combine these numbers right here for you. So negative 25 minus 28 is negative 33 over 4 equals 0. Okay, now Mr. Ko has fractions. Oh no, well, we're not going to worry about that. We're just going to go ahead and push on through because we got to get rid of stuff like number. We got to get rid of the outside number. We got to get rid of the squared. We got to get rid of the inside number. All these things we got to get rid of just like before. And you can do it the long way, fine, perfectly great. But if you want to work on my one-step method, let's do it. Let's get rid of a negative 33 to the other side. That becomes a positive 33 over 4. We have to get rid of the square. How to get rid of a square? We do the square root, plus and minus. Perfectly fine. And then we have to get rid of that 5 over 2. Negative 5 over 2 becomes a positive 5 over 2. on the other side. Now, we're going to leave it like this, and we're going to now just do this on our calculator. And you write this in two different spots, 5 over 2 plus square root of 33 over 4, all inside the square root. That looks a little terrible. And then 5 over 2 minus the square root of 33 over 4. So remember, we have two different versions. We have a positive and negative version. We have left road and right road. Now on a calculator, let's go ahead and type that out. I can write 5 divided by 2, right? Then I'm going to hit plus, 2.5, right? 5 over 2 is 2.5. Plus, now after you do all this again, I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna do 33 divided by 4, and then no, see that messes up because it's gonna combine it. So let's go ahead and redo this. I need to do a parentheses. 5 over 2 plus parentheses 33 divided by 4, close parentheses. 33 divided by 4 is 8.25. And then we're just gonna hit the square root there. Equals, our number is going to be 5.37 rounded down to 37. Okay, let's go do the other one. 5 divided by 2. 5 divided by 2 minus, okay, do a parentheses, 33 divided by 4, close the parentheses, 8.25, and we're going to take the square root of that, equals, our answer is negative 0.37. All right, so our idea here is once we complete the square, sure, we might get a messy answer, but iExcel is going to ask to just type that in a calculator. So you will need to practice your calculator, especially on these square roots, that you know how to use your personal calculator. Everyone has a different calculator. If you're not sure how to use your calculator, definitely please ask me. If not, you can watch this video again. This video is very similar to many of your calculators, the cheap calculators. Okay, let's now work on a problem with an a value in front. If I say 2x squared plus 8x minus 5, okay, equals to 0. This answer is going to be a decimal, most likely. Now, we're going to go ahead and practice our completing the square first, and then we're going to go ahead and solve it. So let's go ahead and complete the square first. Take out the 2. What's left over? Remember, our first step is just prepping. We're just prepping for completing the square. So we end up with the x squared plus 8, not 8, we divide that by 2, becomes 4x. And we leave the negative 5 on the outside, if you guys remember that. No worries, Sophia. Now we're going to go to and bubble up. X, we always divide the middle by 2. What's 4 divided by 2 is 2. The perfect square is plus 4 minus 4. Now we multiply that 2 out. If you guys remember, we put on our jacket to kick it out. That becomes negative 8. And we can combine to become 8, negative 8 minus 5 is negative 13. Oh, that looks like an ugly 3. 13. Okay, negative 13. All right, so now here we have to talk about in what order do we get rid of all the stuff. So we're trying to get rid of everything except the x. Try to get x alone here, okay? So we have to get rid of, obviously, 13 first. Now, which one do we get rid of first? Next, do we get rid of the squared or the 2? It turns out we got to get rid of that 2 next, and then the squared, okay? We got to get rid of that 2 next, and then the squared. So I want us to just talk about the order first before we do it. If we can successfully plan something out before we do it, we won't waste time in the execution. So we get rid of the 13 first. Team 1, get rid of 13. Then we divide it by 2. The opposite of multiply is divide by 2. Then we get rid of the square root, square with the square root, and then we get rid of that 2 last. Okay, so we look at the order. Get rid of the 13 first, then divide it by 2, get rid of the square, and then get rid of that plus 2 at the end. So here we go. Get rid of a minus 13 becomes a positive 13. Then we got to get rid of a 2 by dividing by 2. Then we take the square root of that, plus and minus, and then we get rid of a plus 2 by minus 2. Seems like a lot of work, right? It does seem like a lot. It seems like a lot of steps. But again, we're trying to think of this logically. What do we get rid of? We can't get rid of the squared. If I get rid of the squared, do you see I'm going to take the 2 inside? So we have to get rid of the 2 in front first before I take the square root. Okay, now on calculator, am I right? I'm going to write two different versions of this. Negative 2 plus square root of 13 over 2, and negative 2 minus square root of 13 over 2. If you want to write this in your head, 13 divided by 2 is what's half of 13? It's not 6 and it's not 14, it's 6.5. Okay, so if you want to write 6.5 instead, if it would save you time. So I'm write 2 negative, now let's take a look at my right side now. So 2 negative. So on most calculators that are cheap, you have to write the number first and then make it negative. Plus, as I mentioned before, I need a parentheses. 13 divided by 2, close the parentheses, and now I can take the square root of that. And then I can equals to mix them together. This is going to be 4.5. Is that right? Oops, I forgot to take the square root. Oh, I forgot to take the square root. I held it down, but it didn't work. Let's do it again. I made a mistake here. Let's erase that. I was like, what? That was a little too clean. 2 negative plus parentheses 13 divided by 2, close parentheses, then take the square root of 6.5, and then I can mix them together with the equal sign. Answer is 0.549. I'm going to round up to 0.55, right? 0.55, because we're rounding up. Let's do the next one. 2 negative minus parentheses 13 divided by 2, close parentheses, 6.5, we're going to take a square root of that. Bam, square root equals negative 4.55, rounding up, okay? Okay. So these are the types of problems you guys are going to be working on using completing the square method. It is not a hard method. We're taking that next step of what we did before, and then we're going to finish it off with a calculator at the end. And that's what you guys are going to do for IXL today, okay? And then we're going to do our last method for solving quadratics called the quadratic formula, which is what I call the hammer. We can use it to solve any problem, regardless if it's level 1, 2, 3. It doesn't matter. Quadratic formula always works for us. And that's going to be our last lesson for the year. All right. That's it. Thank you.